Oh, sure, I can. Hello, hello. Thank you guys for joining us. It's October 1st, Thursday, and we are having our kind of semi bi-weekly block producer meeting. We got some interesting stuff to talk through today, including the V210 release, version 1 history hotfix, release of the roadmap, health monitor, and then kind of the big ticket item that we're looking to hopefully have time to go through today is an idea that David, Pablo, and I have been floating around. And I want to make really, really clear about this. This is not like the foundation is suggesting some change, or, this is literally just an idea David had, and he's been bouncing it off us, and we really are interested in exploring it more. And we're starting to talk to advisors about it. And we wanted to kind of pitch it to you guys as well to get your feedback. And again, this isn't like we're recommending this change at all. It's still very, very early kind of whiteboarding, brainstorming type stuff. So I just want to be real careful and clear about that, especially for anyone who might see this video, that this is not, in any way a suggestion of like, hey, the foundation's going to go do this thing. But we've been thinking through the tokenomics model of FIO, thinking about the different people that add energy essentially to the system, value to the system, block producers, wallet integrators, exchange integrators, things like that. But obviously the actual token holders, the investors, the speculators, everyone who, adds, again, energy to the system, and those who use the system. And we've been playing around with some models that might more balance the equation as far as sharing value with value. So look forward to chatting about that later. We'll do that towards the end of the call as we have time. But again, it's just going to be, open brainstorming kind of a deal to share some ideas we're having. And it'll be the beginning of a conversation that we'd love your input on. If hopefully that's a good enough kickoff, Eric, and if you want to take it from there, that'd be great.
Sure. Let's just start off with a recap of the release schedule and what's coming up. The kind of October, November ideas right now. Some things will get swapped around, but let me share my screen really quick. All right. Am I sharing the right screen?
Yeah, I see your roadmap here, and
okay,
this is available to everyone who has an account on Atlassian, correct?
Yeah, and I can send out the link. That's a good point, Luke. Yeah, this is definitely available, publicly available. So just to go through where we stand now in September here, some of this isn't really relevant to blockchain, but these top items here, what we've been calling this Gemini release, includes the second piece of the release, which is the contract release beyond the whitelisting that we did and accomplished. And great work, I have to say, across the board on getting that. That Gemini was a big forking release. It actually went, knock on wood, fairly smoothly here when we did the whitelisting and then we did the add actions, and that date passed. And as we hoped, it was a non-event when that actual date passed, because the actual forking event was the adding of the actions. So congratulations to everyone and the dev team and the VPs on getting that done. That kind of, hopefully, knock on wood, opens up all this backlog. You see this kind of backlog of stuff that's been developed and internally tested that now we want to start rolling out. So part of what we're rolling out right now and what we just approved earlier this week, and just did a fix, it looks like that MSIG went through this morning on it, was the stuff for FIPS 1A, which is the transferring of the FIO domain. We have some paging, and I won't go through all these because we've done these before, and some additional calls on FIPS 3 and 4. So those are the contracts that were submitted earlier into testnet. We ran a few tests. We found there was a mismatch, and it kind of pointed to a hole in our testing regarding making sure that all of the actions that get called are recorded appropriately under a V1 history node. It does point out to the fact that we don't actually test on Hyperion and some of the other history nodes as well, and maybe I have to figure out how to add that in to that test schedule, and I can work with you guys on that, just so we can make sure things are looking okay, and I can send out the list of actions and maybe run a test and people can make sure certain actions are showing up or certain transactions. And that's how it showed up. We actually had a transaction go through on the chain. You look it up, it doesn't exist. So we fixed that. That rolled out today. We'll be rerunning some tests today and tomorrow, likely, and we won't roll out another MSIG Friday evening in Europe while everyone's at the pub. We'll wait till Monday morning and roll out, if we're ready to go with the testing, we'll roll out the MSIG to mainnet. Again, this is for the FIPS 1A, 2, 3, and 4. Does that make sense to everyone? I think everyone's on board with that one. I can post that.
Yeah, just to be clear again, you say we're not going to roll that out Friday morning or Friday night, but the plan would be next week on Monday. Is that right? If all goes,
I'd like to do it
go well,
if possible.
Okay, excellent. And just to be clear on the, this is one of the few things that we've committed to the community about is this domain transferability. We've got a lot of people that were early on in the domain auction, and they really wanted to have the ability to move these domains around to different accounts and do different things with them. So it's really important to certain members of the community. And we did kind of, and maybe this is my bad, but kind of loosely said, yeah, it's looking like the end of September, if nothing comes up. And so we, had a little thing come up in testnet, but as long as we can get this well tested today, tomorrow, through the weekend on testnet, and there's no additional concerns, we get that done quickly on Monday. Hopefully that'll be not a problem.
Cool. So coming up then, kind of getting into maybe a monthly cadence of releases here. We want to limit the number of chain updates that we're doing. So the next release in October, again, some of these things that have started, we've been discussing, we've internally tested, we've DevNet tested, but now we're going to push into a release and do system level testing on. And these may or may not, this is what we have right now, these top 4. We actually just this morning we're doing a code review and pushed one out of this release because it had some dependencies on the chain. But for the contract code updates, again, this redesigning of fee computations, we're trying to get there with you guys so you can set those fees and do the median computations as we had in the past. We ran into some performance problems. Now that we have Gemini out, we'll be able to push that out. We just did a code review on that this morning. That's targeted for this next October release. When I talk about October release, it's probably getting into testnet 3rd week of October is the loose time frame, and then hopefully out into mainnet end of month, last week of October or early November. So there, I'm keeping it nice and vague for you, Luke. Don't say end of the month. So the second one is voting and proxying without a TPID, just some fixes there. There's the ability to burn a FIO address, and then just some code optimizations that we've been working on that are left over from mainnet, some cleanup there. So that's what we're targeting in October. The second piece I did want to mention briefly, though it's getting a little far out, is one we'll have to do, and again, I'd love feedback on the BPs on the cadence. This will be a non-forking chain code rollout, just because it has to support, there's some items that need to get supported with some of these new FIPs that we're generating. But FIP 1B, so Luke talked about the transfer domain. The other thing that's very pressing for us is the transfer of the address. What happened with the transfer of address, and Casey's been the one working on this, is it came along with a lot of performance issues we've had with requests within Wallet, where if you have the requests, FIO requests starting to pile up, it becomes very difficult to page through them for a wallet, or impossible at times. So part of this address, actually being able to transfer an address, had to come along with those performance improvements. In addition, it's going to involve a table migration of a lot of data. So a little more complex, obviously has to be associated with the chain code update as well. So this kind of black mark notes that, oh, we have to do a chain code update for this one. And then there's a few others in there that we'll try and push in. The enhancements of Clio, which Adam has pushed out to the group, that'll go into that chain code update, some transaction history, this ability to lock tokens between users or for the foundation that Ed's been working on, we'll get in there as well. So that's a preview of what's coming up, and I'll just open up if there's any questions or thoughts on cadence, or if things.
Eric, can you check the waiting room? It looks like we got Patrick.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I knew it could be very difficult if you're presenting to remember to do that. We got to figure out how to do the co-hosting. It used to be super easy to set a co-host. I wonder if they changed that also.
No, I got it.
All good.
Man. Sorry, it just
cool. Thanks.
Collapsed that screen.
Thanks, Nate.
Sorry about that. Yep. I've got it up now, Luke. I should be able to get that. It got hidden. So, any questions on the cadence there, or thoughts on releases in general, or things we can do to help VPs with releases?
I think this is great. Just having this kind of overview and plan of what's coming, and kind of just gives us a good general idea. I think it's good.
Yeah, and I can post out screenshots of this every once in a while too. You know, I know everyone doesn't want to go visit this site and log in every time, so I'll send out the link and then occasional screenshots as we start moving stuff around.
Screenshots are great.
Yeah.
One of the things that we were just discussing internally was just again, the cadence of specifically the chain code updates. Those are things that as we've really, the team has learned a lot. We've all learned a lot as far as our architecture design. And I think there was this initial idea that we're just going to deliver this great thing and it's going to be this perfectly packaged protocol that'll just live on. And clearly, we have so many neat, interesting ideas and ways to improve things and fixes and many other things that's just not going to be the case. Obviously, software is never done, right? It's just you just ship it eventually, right? So we're trying to find the right balance. And as Eric and I were talking, I'm in an interesting place because I've been a block producer on Hive and EOS, so I kind of know it's kind of pain in the butt to constantly have to do replays or rebuilds and restarts and all that kind of stuff. And we want to understand that, especially for exchanges. That's a big deal for them. If they have to do something like that, you want to limit that. Obviously, the hard forks we want to limit as much as possible, and for the most part, those other exchanges and wallets won't have to be able to do that. But as far as the block producers, for example, especially when your endpoints are the endpoints that some wallets might be using, rolling out chain code updates in order for those new features in smart contracts to be available. I want to make sure we hear from you guys as far as what you're comfortable with. I think obviously weekly deploys are out, monthly deploys might be a bit much, maybe quarterly deploys. I'd love to hear from you guys as far as what your expectations are from other chains, what your expectations are with FIO. Just open it up for discussion just a little bit.
For me, I would say, needing to upgrade our API endpoints, monthly is totally reasonable. I'd say weekly is too much. Twice a month isn't that even that big a deal for me. But yeah, so that's kind of where I am. I think the harder part is like you mentioned, if it is something that exchanges need to follow, and anyone else that wallets or anyone else that's running these endpoints as well that need to follow and upgrade as well.
Yeah, they might be very busy, and once a month it's good timing. So yeah.
Cool. Well, that's good to hear. Again, if there are any other objections to that or anyone else who has concerns, just want to make sure we're in alignment with expectations. I think that's really important. And then two, I understand, with every restart, there's always that risk of, corrupting block logs or who knows what, and having to do a replay or get a snapshot and resync or whatever. So we always, obviously trying to limit that. But if that's the general consensus, then if we're anything, it sounds like anything more, anything that's over that is going to be fine. So if we're hitting you every 6 weeks or something, or if there is, like you said, an update, 2 updates in a month, if that's necessary and can provide value. Another thing I want to mention that you touched on also is this is highlighting the need for node by node confirmation of feature sets available, not just like, okay, what version are they on, but that way, for example, in my mind, we wouldn't publicize an available feature on chain until we have confirmation from all of our published public nodes that people are encouraged to use, as far as API nodes and query nodes, that those features are available. And that'll be the type of thing that we want to get a little clean on as far as our feature sets that are available.
Yeah.
Yeah, one item I didn't mention is there is also actually it's in the foreground now. Both Casey and Adam have been working on the EOSIO 2.0 upgrade or 2.x upgrade. So, not scheduled for a while. That'll definitely be a forking update. But the upgrade, there's a channel on that, I believe, Adam. And so we'll start posting more details and getting more feedback and bringing a lot of people into that upgrade process. The first one is just how's it going to work with existing code, and then a lot of optimization discussions as well. How do we get our code closer to EOSIO? Where does that make sense to do, or if it makes sense to do? A lot of those discussions have been happening out there in terms of our divergence from EOS. So that is happening as well over this fall. Just wanted to, yeah.
And to chime in, we do have that GitHub branch already set up that has the update already there, and you can kind of track our progress on it. We've called it Apollo for the time being, but feel free to kind of check on us and give comments when necessary.
Sweet. You mentioned it's forking. Is that true? I mean, it probably requires a replay, but it shouldn't be forking, right?
I don't know, Adam.
No,
I
no
don't
forking.
think it's forking.
Okay.
Oh, I thought
Okay,
you said it was.
just clarifying.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, I don't think we anticipate changing anything in consensus for this upgrade. It's a migration of current state over to the new platform.
Okay.
That's awesome, though. I mean, that's a good one to have. There's a lot of nice improvements in the 2.0 code.
That's interesting. I always thought that was kind of one of those silent forks, right? Like, yeah, I know Block One's been a little bit not super clear sometimes with what exactly was a, yeah, hey, everyone upgrade really quickly and you all have to do it, but it's not really a fork, but maybe it is, So are you saying that 2.0 is technically not a consensus changing fork? Like the exchanges wouldn't have to upgrade?
Well, in EOS.io, it is not consensus changing fork, right? In FIO, it's a bit different because a lot is done in the node itself. So I'm not sure it will run together with the old version. Probably we need to basically switch over altogether. I'm not sure. Basically, it needs testing and yeah. Still
good to know. Good to know.
It shouldn't be, but there are some features of 2.0 that I believe, if enabled, would be a fork. But
that is the next step, yes. But you can start to 2.0 without new features, and it will work.
Right.
At least with vanilla EOS.io, it's just smooth. You can run both 1.8 and 2.0.
Yeah, it's important to have all BP nodes upgraded in the moment of activation of the features. If node is not upgraded, it will stop producing blocks. We had this situation in Jungle, so yeah.
Exciting.
Good to know. So the next thing on our agenda was the health monitor. I know that got put in place. I don't know how many of you are kind of following those alerts, but Todd, do you have any kind of summary or update you want to give on that, or where that stands? Or I know it's not complete yet, but we have the alpha out there, the beta version.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely not perfect. It's not meant to be like a real-time monitor. It's more, last time when we we had some forks, it would have helped with something like that. So, it's kind of a different take on what's going on already with the various tools. So, hopefully it's useful. And definitely feel free to ask any questions that.
Will it send alerts to Telegram or something?
It does, actually. There's a channel. I'll invite you if you'd like.
Okay. But can you subscribe to your own alerts, basically? Each BP is interested, first of all, in their own health, and then in overall.
I would say each BP should have their own health checks for their own nodes, right? I think that's
what we're doing. Of course, we're doing it. But once you're building such a feature, it makes sense to add maybe also targeted alerts.
I'll think it through.
Second, independent view is always better than.
Yeah, definitely. Right now, it only works as a. It just runs periodically via AWS Lambda. I don't have it plugged into API Gateway or anything to act as a full Telegram bot. It just sends blind notifications to a channel. So, but I can rethink it. Let me see what kind of effort that would be. The kind of the guiding principle I took on this was that it should be useful, but it should also run entirely in the free tier for AWS. So I like free tools. So adding something like that might add a little bit of complexity, but I'll look into the implications of it.
Maybe some, I don't know, RSS or Atom feed where we could basically translate these alerts to some other systems.
It's all JSON out there, so I'll post the link to the JSON for the current alerts, if that's useful.
And Eric, maybe you can show the Grafana screen and kind of some of those reports.
Oh, the Grafana?
Yeah.
All right. Let me pull that up. I'll share here. Did you want
Michael from USSA is waiting in waiting room.
Of course, as soon as I start messing around with all this. Get the screens going. I'll move it over here to my main screen. So Pava, did you want to look at what?
I just wanted to share this. So this is another one of those kind of reporting systems that we have online. I just posted the link here in chat, and you know, we will probably continue building all sorts of report. If you can click like on the FIO address there for as an example, where we kind of report all of the kind of FIO specific data, right? So you can see all of the FIO address registrations, the mappings, how many unique accounts, how many active accounts. So something that you guys can navigate and take a look at.
And one of the you know, another reason to kind of mention this and point it out to you guys is, you know, as a block producer, I'm sure you know your team is more involved with your relationship with FIO beyond just, you know, running a server. Obviously that's a big part of it, but another big part that we would love to have your support on is connecting to your network, you know, talking to, and some of you have been doing this, which is great, you know, blog posts and tweets and things to just let people know this network exists. You know, this is a really big deal as far as usability for the entire cryptocurrency space. And one of the challenges we all face is just letting people know we exist. And so getting the word out. And so this is just data that you can use and your marketing team can use to kind of communicate what it is you're involved in and what it is you're doing and kind of the growth of it and things of that nature. So, and it's also helpful to notice, like, you know, different spikes and stuff like that going on.
Any other charts you wanted to look at, Pava or Yoga?
We don't have to spend too much time on this. Just something for you guys to know is out there and exists. Feel free to poke around.
I think it's great. I think these are awesome. Todd, I know, worked really hard on this. Pava, you've been setting up the, doing a lot with the actual charting, but poking around through here is really fun. So yeah, I definitely encourage that.
All right, so would you want to use the last bit of the call for David to go through his presentation?
Yeah.
All right, we may not have as much time for Q&A on this call as we normally try to leave, but I think this is an exciting thing. Hopefully you guys are going to be interested in it and would really like your ongoing feedback after this call as well, as we talk it through.
Hey, can you make me a co-host so I can share my screen?
Yeah. It just enabled that, but make host.
Yeah, I've got it now. I'm good.
Okay.
All right. You guys see the deck? Yep. All right. Cool. I will jump into this. I'm going to go pretty fast through this, you know, because A, I want to be sensitive to time. B, I want to make sure there's time for questions, hopefully, but I will go pretty fast through this here. The genesis for this concept is that not surprisingly, we were certainly aware of this. You all are as well, that FIO suffers from the network effect, meaning its value is going to be, you know, scaled geometrically as users adopt it. And early on, its value is pretty limited. If one person has a FIO address, it's useless. We built into the protocol a number of features that you're probably familiar with, user bounties, TPIDs, etc., to incentivize integration, and that, you know, has worked. We've definitely incentivized integrations of early adopters. But with users, there currently is no built-in incentive for a user to be an early adopter, and the people who adopt FIO earlier obviously are not getting the same value out of it as those that are the last adopters. So the concept that's presented here is a high-level description of a potential way to do that. The objectives of doing this are to encourage early adoption by actual users, cause those users to therefore seek FIO integrated applications so they can engage with the FIO protocol and participate in this, and entice them economically to spread the word to others. One of the optional items that could be added on would be a way to also incentivize holders of FIO tokens to hold and lock FIO tokens as part of this. So the basic model that's presented here, I describe as a co-op model. Some of you might be familiar with co-ops. They are not new. Co-ops is a economic model where a business treats its customers as part of the business. And so here in the United States, REI, which sells gear for hiking and camping, is one of the most well-known ones. If you're a customer of REI, you become a member of the co-op, and you actually participate in the economics of the company. The more money the company makes and the more you spend, the more of a rebate you get directly related to that. So key criteria for this sort of model, obviously it has to be a Sybil attack proof. It has to create greater economic benefits the earlier that people participate. Otherwise, it doesn't create the incentive to participate now versus later. Payouts need to be linked to future economics of the chain, because the growth of the chain ultimately needs to be correlated to how much economics users get, and it needs to be very low friction. Anything that requires lots of additional steps is not going to really be a positive thing. The basic marketing storyline on what I'm going to describe here would be the following. The earlier you register a FIO address or domain and pay for it, and the more FIO token fees you pay or potentially stake in total, the greater the share of future FIO blockchain income you will receive forever. And the more other people who subsequently pay to use FIO and join the FIO protocol, the more future income you receive. So the requirement to participate in this system would be to pay for a FIO address or domain. The key is that the key paying for it is the one that participates. So as you, I'm sure, are aware, FIO enables one key to pay for a FIO address registration on behalf of another. The one paying for it would need to be the participant. Otherwise, you do create an entrant for Sybil attacks. This also then enables the model of free FIO addresses to persist. So a wallet, an exchange, even the foundation could choose to say, well, we're going to go ahead and buy FIO addresses for our users. But in that scenario, the buyer, the wallet, the exchange, the foundation would be the one that would receive the participation economics, not the recipient of the free FIO address. So high-level economics on how this would work, and the devil's in the details, and we do not have the details figured out. A lot of different numbers and levers that could be pulled on this model that we would have to figure out. But basically, a portion of all the future FIO token income to the protocol would be allocated to users, to participants. I call this the co-op share. Participants, again, would be compensated based on when they became a participant, when they signed up and paid for a FIO address or domain, based also on the total fees that they paid into the system, and again, potentially some element related to locking up tokens and effectively staking them. If a participant makes multiple purchases at different times, each of those purchases do participate, so they get credit for any purchases they make at any time in the future. So sort of looking at this visually, percentage of blockchain fees are allocated, and sort of the concept here based on the thickness of the arrows, the earlier participants get a slightly larger share than later participants or cohorts. And this could be done in two different ways. One would be to group participants in time-based cohorts by day, by week, by month, etc. Another would be to actually create a mathematical algorithm, which is, I think, where we're starting to lean. Where basically just sequentially, based on somebody signs up, the mathematical algorithm calculates their share, and if they're an earlier signer-upper, then they get a slightly larger share. If there are actual cohorts, then each cohort gets an allocation of the fees, and then the division of the cohort's fees to its participants is based on how much they spent on the chain, is how visually this works. So each of these colored boxes represents a participant. They're different sizes because different participants based on will have spent different amounts or staked different amounts, and they would get a different share of the allocation. Looking visually at one specific model, this just sort of shows you with like a 2% premium of each participant over the next, and 2% is just a pulled completely out of the air percentage that probably is too high. But it sort of shows you how this would work, where you can see, and ignore number 3, or I need to fix that. Was an error in my spreadsheet. But you can see how each participant gets a slightly higher percentage than the prior one, but it obviously has to total 100% because you can't give out more than 100% of the participation. So this effectively is what's called a geometric series, is how this works. And so you can tweak this in lots of different ways. So a couple options that would be considered with this. One, the foundation could potentially have a bonus period where it sort of spikes the payouts and says, we're going to allocate some tokens and we're going to increase the payouts by 50 or 100% or 20% or whatever out of this pool that the foundation creates. So it could create a sort of uber incentive early on for participation by spiking the payouts. That obviously could not go on forever, so it would be limited based on the tokens and or time that the foundation decides would be allocated to that. As I mentioned, another option is this idea of token staking. If this was included, the general concept is that users would just decide on their own to lock up some FIO tokens they hold. They could decide how long they want to lock it up and how many tokens they want to lock up. The amount of the tokens they lock up that sort of count towards their participation would be based on the length of the lock. So if they lock these tokens up for a very, very long period of time, they could get 100% credit, where locking up the tokens becomes equivalent to spending the tokens on FIO domains, FIO addresses, etc. But in most cases, they would lock them up for shorter periods, and so they'd get some percentage less than 100% allocation of the tokens that they lock up that would count towards their participation. Another option that we could consider would be on domains. One way to treat domains is just like any other expenditure. If a domain costs 40 times a FIO address, it gets 40 times the participation of an address, because 40 times as much was spent. But you could also give an additional incentive where FIO addresses that are registered on the domain create additional fee sharing for those domains. So it would then create an incentive for domain owners to encourage registration of FIO addresses on their domain, because not only would those FIO addresses participate on their own, but the FIO domain owner would get a somewhat greater share of the pie based on those addresses registered on their domain. So that is the overview. The rest is some of the key decisions that would have to be made on this. I'm sure there are things that are not on the slide that we'll add in the future, but there are a lot of questions that will have to be answered if we were to do something like this. And so I'll just pause there and open it up for questions. Questions, thoughts, reactions, anything?
Yeah, I think Eugene is here. Your approach to create incentive system for, that incentivizes participation by users is very important to bring, adoption, obviously. So it's a great technology. Not many people realize it, and adding that incentive system would help to bring more people.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'm a REI Co-op member myself, and so a big fan of the co-op concept. And I mean, at the end of the day, the success of the FIO network is, ultimately depends on how widespread and adopted we get this thing. And this sounds like an awesome idea as far as just getting the whole community excited about sharing the information, incentivizing them,
Great, thank you.